It was supposed to be just another awards night in Los Angeles. Red carpet, flashing cameras, political digs wrapped in jokes. Nothing unusual until Caroline Levit showed up, wearing a sleek dark green gown and her signature silver cross. Caroline entered with her head high, but she wasn't alone. Walking beside her was her husband, Daniel Whitmore, a former Marine. Quiet, steady, not a celebrity, but the kind of man who turned heads by presence alone. The press noticed him. "Who's that with Caroline? Is that her security?" "No, that's her husband. A vet, I think." Inside the ballroom, everyone was buzzing. Then the lights dimmed and out walked Tom Cruz, host of the night. Suave, charming, smiling, but with an edge that had cut plenty before. "Ladies and gentlemen," he beamed, "we've got senators, stars, and even some people who believe the earth is flat." Laughter. "And here comes Caroline Levit, America's favorite, fire starter, bringing along a husband who looks like he just wandered off a Marine recruitment poster." The crowd chuckled. Caroline's smile didn't move, but her husband's jaw tensed. Tom wasn't done. "Honestly, I thought that was her bodyguard until I saw the wedding ring." "She married him?" "What? Was Jason Bourne busy?" Louder laughter now. Caroline's face was calm but icy. Daniel leaned in quietly. "You okay?" She nodded. "I'm fine, but he's not." The camera panned past their table. Caroline gently placed her napkin on the table, stood up, and walked backstage with Daniel. Tom Cruz, unaware of what he'd just triggered, continued hosting. But something had shifted. Something was coming. Tom Cruz had just wrapped up his fourth joke about politics when the room lights dimmed suddenly. He paused, confused. Then a new spotlight snapped on. Stage left. From the shadows emerged Caroline Levit. She wasn't scheduled to speak. She hadn't been invited on stage, but here she was, calm, confident, cutting through the silence and stilettos. Even Tom had to blink. Caroline, what are you doing?" She took the second microphone, didn't look at him. Instead, she turned to the audience. "Since Tom brought me into the conversation, I figured I should respond." Nervous laughter. "You know, it's easy to stand up here and mock people who don't live in your world. But Tom didn't just mock me. He mocked my husband. A man who spent 10 years in the Marines. A man who faced real danger, not stunts and cameras." The room tensed. Even the A-listers stopped sipping champagne. Caroline kept going. "When I walked in here tonight, I knew I wasn't your kind of guest. I don't come from Hollywood. I come from service, from discipline, from people who believe that respect isn't a punchline." She glanced briefly at Tom, whose smile had faded completely. "And as for the joke, if you're going to make fun of my husband, at least try to be original, comparing him to Jason Bourne. That's cute, but trust me, Jason Bourne would have lost to this man in a second." That got a reaction. Cheers, whistles, even a few standing ovations from veterans in the back rows. Caroline let the applause settle, then dropped the final line. "Tom, I don't need to be a movie star to command a stage. I just need to tell the truth." And with that, she turned, walked off, and left the spotlight flickering behind her. Backstage, Daniel waited by the curtain. "That was something," he said quietly. Caroline smiled. Finally, that was just the beginning. Backstage, Tom Cruz paced like a lion in a shrinking cage. Producers whispered in his earpiece, "Let it go, Tom. Just move on with the script." But he wasn't wired that way. Caroline's impromptu speech had landed like a right hook, and now cameras were rolling. Social media was already ablaze. Clips of her quote, "I don't need to be a movie star to command a stage," were spreading like wildfire. Tom didn't care. He wanted to win. He walked back out, adjusted his cuffs, and forced a grin. "Well, I guess I just got a lecture from the First Lady of Fox News." Some laughed awkwardly. Others just watched. But hey, let's be honest. If I had $1 for every time a conservative told me they were offended, I'd be richer than I already am. A few claps, mostly tension. Tom pushed. Harder. Look, I respect the troops, but let's not confuse being married to a Marine with knowing everything about leadership. There's a difference between experience and ego. Oof. The air went heavy. Even his own table froze, not because it was bold, because it was dumb. Backstage, Daniel had been quiet. Still was, but now he stepped forward. "You good with me walking in there?" he asked Caroline. She didn't answer. She just stepped aside. Seconds later, the double doors to the stage creaked open again. This time, it wasn't Caroline. It was him. Daniel Whitmore, 6'2", broad shoulders, calm fury in every step. He walked straight down the center aisle. No rush, no apology, just presence. The audience turned in slow motion. Tom Cruz looked up and blinked. "Can I say something?" Daniel asked, his voice steady. The mic tech, shocked, just handed him a live one. Daniel turned to the crowd, then calmly faced Tom. "You can joke all you want, but the moment you questioned her leadership, you made it personal." She earned her voice. "You just act like you deserve yours." Boom. One sentence, one reaction. The entire front row gasped. Tom was speechless. Daniel nodded once, handed the mic back, and walked out. Not another word, but the message. It shook. The walls. By the time the awards show cut to commercial, Twitter, now X, was already on fire. Hashtags like "Daniel did that," "Marine MC drop," and "Sit down Tom" were trending nationally. Clips of Daniel's calm walk to the stage and his own liner. "She earned her voice. You just act like you deserve yours." Had been posted, reposted, slowed down, remixed. A former Marine speaking not in anger but in truth, and people listened. Fox News ran a segment within the hour. Caroline Levit's husband shocks Hollywood with silent strength, but it wasn't just the conservative outlets. CNN's Kyron read, "Veteran confronts Tom Cruise. You just act like you deserve it." Even late-night hosts like Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, normally allies of Cruise, hesitated to defend him. Why? Because it didn't look like a joke anymore. It looked like a man punching down and a couple standing up. The next morning, Caroline's inbox exploded. Supporters, veterans groups, college students, journalists. Some had never written her before, but they all said the same thing. You didn't have to yell. You didn't have to fight dirty. You brought a man of honor to a room of ego, and the truth spoke for itself. Daniel didn't even check his phone. He was in the kitchen brewing coffee like. It was just another morning. Caroline, still in her robe, looked over. "You know, you kind of blew up the internet last night." Daniel smirked. "I didn't do anything but say the truth." She raised an eyebrow. That's exactly why it worked. Back in Los Angeles, Tom Cruz sat in his home office watching it all unfold. Every clip, every reaction. His name wasn't trending for a movie. He was trending for being put in his place. "That man is dangerous," he muttered. He wasn't talking about Daniel's military background. He was talking about influence. Tom Cruise's team scrambled. A full-blown crisis had erupted overnight. Interns were combing social media, flagging the worst clips. Publicists were on the phone with Vanity Fair and GQ, pitching exclusive interviews to steer the narrative. "We can frame it as humor gone wrong," one aide suggested, "or call it a misunderstanding," another offered. Tom stared at them all. "Number, we don't apologize." The room fell silent, but deep down, Tom knew he was losing something more valuable than screen time control. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Caroline was at the press podium. She didn't bring up the awards show, didn't mention Tom Cruise, but the press did. A CNN reporter raised her hand. "Ms. Levit, any comment on last night's viral moment?" Caroline smiled, cool and collected. "I think what my husband said spoke louder than anything I could have added. He wasn't defending me. He was defending respect." Boom. That line alone hit 1 million views by noon. Then came the invites, Fox News, CBS Morning, even the Today Show. They all wanted Caroline and Daniel together. America had seen couples fight for attention. But this couple, they were fighting for each other. Backstage at Fox, Caroline turned to Daniel before the cameras rolled. "You sure about this?" He shrugged. "Not a fan of the spotlight, but if it helps shut down guys like Cruz, count me in." That night, the interview aired. Millions tuned in. And when Daniel said it wasn't about defending her honor, it was about reminding people that not everyone with a mic deserves to use it. Twitter lit up again. People called them the modern political power couple, a fusion of toughness and calm, belief and backbone. And Tom, he watched it all from a hotel room, expression tight. He picked up his phone and finally called his lawyer. The manila envelope arrived by courier. No label, no logo, just wait. Caroline opened it at her White House press office desk, Daniel sitting nearby with a coffee in hand. Inside a thick legal document at the top, notice of defamation concern. Thomas Cruz, Map 4. It was official. Tom Cruz had just threatened to sue. The language was slick but sharp. The comments made by Ms. Levit and Mr. Whitmore have caused reputational damage. Failure to issue a public apology may result in legal action. Caroline let out a slow breath and smiled, not with fear, but with focus. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "He's really going there?" "Yeah," she replied. He picked the wrong opponent. That night, Caroline didn't go on TV. She didn't post a fiery tweet. Instead, she opened an old encrypted file folder saved on a flash drive. It had one name, Gibson 19. She plugged it into her laptop and typed in a 10-digit password. Daniel watched from across the room. "You're opening that?" Caroline nodded. "If Tom wants a public war, I'll give him a public record." Inside the folder were emails, screenshots, a timeline. Back in 2019, during a military charity event in Los Angeles, Tom Cruise had backed out of a sponsorship deal last minute after making strong promises to a group of veterans. Caroline, then a junior congressional aide, had witnessed it. She had documented it quietly. At the time, it wasn't her battle to fight. "But now, this isn't about revenge," she whispered. "It's about pattern. He humiliates people, dismisses service, then hides behind image." By morning, Caroline had her team draft a simple but blistering statement. "We have received Tom Cruise's legal threat." As someone who documents truth for a living, I am not intimidated by celebrity lawsuits, but I am very interested in releasing full records regarding Mr. Cruise's behavior toward military communities. If he would like a public discussion, I am happy to schedule one in court or on camera. The internet detonated. Conservative circles celebrated. Moderates leaned in. Even liberal-leaning vets began sharing personal stories. "I was there in 19. Caroline isn't lying. He ghosted our charity the day of the event. We were humiliated. And Tom, he was in a crisis room holding the phone in one hand and his PR manager in the other." "What the hell does she have?" he barked. No one answered because no one knew how far Caroline Levit was willing to go. The set was darker than usual. Spotlights trained on a single seat in the center of the Fox News primetime studio. A silver microphone, a single sheet of glassy paper under Caroline Levit's hand. The flash drive rested silently beside it, marked in black ink. Gibson 19. Host Tucker Green introduced her with barely concealed anticipation. "Tonight we welcome White House Press Secretary Caroline Levit, not just for commentary, but to respond to a lawsuit threat by actor Tom Cruise." The camera cut to Caroline. No smile, no bravado, just clarity. "I was threatened this week legally by a man who mocked my husband's service and then couldn't handle the public response. That man was Tom Cruise." The room went silent. "But I've learned something working in Washington. People who hide behind power rarely expect to be confronted with truth." She slid the flash drive forward. This file contains email exchanges, memos, and direct communications from 2019 documenting Tom Cruz's sudden withdrawal from a veterans charity event that left over 100 service members without the promised funding or appearance he had pledged. This was not a scheduling conflict. It was a decision, one he never apologized for. Tucker blinked. Even he didn't know she was going that far. Caroline turned toward the camera now, millions watching. "You sued me. Mr. Cruz, claiming I harmed your reputation? But what I have here isn't hearsay. It's your own words. So if we're going to court, I'll be bringing this. But if you want to drop the lawsuit, I'm willing to consider a public apology to the veterans you ghosted. Online, chaos ignited like a second lightning strike. The hashtags returned. Caroline strikes back. Gibson file honor over Hollywood on Reddit. Veterans posted photos from the 2019 event. Half-empty chairs confused families. One wrote, "My dad waited all day for Cruz. We were told he'd show." Caroline's telling the truth. CNN couldn't ignore it. Neither could NBC. And Tom, he stayed quiet. Too quiet. His lawyer refused interviews. His publicist declined comment and, on his own exact account, radio silence. Daniel leaned over at home watching the broadcast on his laptop. He's not going to say a word, is he? Caroline shook her head. He already said enough on paper. The shock waves from Caroline's on-air revelation didn't stop at political circles. Hollywood, glittery, guarded, and famously silent when its owner, called out, shook. The Gibson 19 file was real. Several studio insiders leaked internal memos from that year confirming Tom's cancellation wasn't due to scheduling, but to branding concerns over the charity's conservative affiliations. Too rural, too red, read one line from a Cruz team assistant. The story exploded. Headlines shifted from tabloid gossip to reputational reckoning, but no one expected what came next. Enter Keanu Reeves. Quiet, respected, a man who kept to himself, until now. He took to X Twitter with a rare statement. "I was invited to the same 2019 Veterans event. I attended. Tom didn't. I saw the disappointment on those faces. Caroline Levit spoke the truth. And veterans deserve better than being forgotten. For optics." Boom. The tweet hit 5 million views in hours. Hollywood reporters gasped. Keanu Reeves had just broken the code, calling out a fellow A-lister to defend Caroline Levit. Within hours, others followed suit. A B-list actor anonymously told Variety, "We've all seen Cruz skip out on things when it doesn't benefit his brand. Caroline just had the receipts." A prominent producer tweeted, "The arrogance of mocking a Marine's family, then trying to sue them." Caroline had every right to clap back. A liberal columnist on Substack wrote, "You don't have to like her politics to see what's right. Tom lost this battle the moment he made it personal." Meanwhile, Caroline stayed silent. No gloating, no retweeting. When asked by reporters if she saw Keanu's statement, she simply said, "That took courage. I respect it deeply." Tom Cruz's team grew frantic. "We need a counter-narrative," his publicist said. "No," Tom growled. "We need this to die." But it was too late. Even late-night comics, once friendly, joked nervously. Tom Cruz challenged a Marine's wife and got knocked out by a flash drive. Daniel, watching quietly from their kitchen, smiled faintly. "Did you ever think Keanu Reeves would back you up?" Caroline smirked. "I was hoping Clint Eastwood, but I'll take it." It began quietly. An anonymous article appeared on a small gossip blog. Is Caroline Levit really the patriot she claims to be? The piece was vague references to alleged staff mistreatment, whispers of internal White House conflict, and claims that she used her husband's military service to boost her image. New sources, new documents, but it had Tom Cruz's fingerprints all over it. By noon, 4 more blogs picked it up. By evening, AI's trending hashtag appeared, Levit lies. But this time, people didn't buy it. Caroline wasn't shocked. She knew how the machine worked. When you couldn't win on stage, you pulled strings in the dark. Daniel handed her the phone. You want to respond to this? She shook her head. No, not yet. I want him to think it's working. What Tom didn't know was that Caroline had already prepared for this move weeks ago. She had seen it happen to others, smear campaigns, reputation sabotage, anonymous leaks. So, she built her firewall early. Employee satisfaction surveys, staff exit interviews, video clips of veterans she'd helped over the years, never publicized, until now. She compiled it all into one package, called it Truth Over Spin, and she dropped it all in a single post on X. Some people fight in the open, others fight in the shadows. I prefer receipts. Here is Mina. Attached was a 2-minute video montage. Veterans hugging her at events, staffers praising her leadership, a retired general's statement. Caroline Levit shows more honor in her pinky than most in an entire career. It hit 10 million views in less than 6 hours. And just like that, Levit lies turned into Levit leads. Even Keanu Reeves reposted it with 3 words. This is integrity. Tom Cruz's inner circle panicked. His lawyer stepped in. She's building a legal fortress. We can't go on with the lawsuit. His PR rep added, She's not just fighting back, she's winning hearts. You've made her bigger. Tom stared at the screen, watching her video loop again. He was once the star that made America believe in heroes. But now, America had a new one, and she didn't need a box office. Tom Cruz never made a statement. No retraction, no apology, no press conference, just silence. 2 days after Caroline's video went viral, his legal team quietly dropped the defamation threat. No fanfare, no comment. It was over. But for Caroline Levit, it wasn't enough to win quietly. She had one more thing to say. H. At the annual Veterans Honor Summit in Virginia, where military families, retired generals, and volunteers gathered. Under one flag, Caroline stepped onto the podium in a navy blue blazer, the silver cross on her neck, gleaming under the fall sun. The crowd fell silent. Some expected a victory speech, a jab at Hollywood, a final blow. But Caroline gave them something else. A few weeks ago, someone with power mocked the man I love. Not just his service, but the values that define him. And when we stood up, we weren't fighting for politics or applause. We were fighting for what too many people in this country are too afraid to defend. Honor, faith, respect. The applause was thunderous, but she raised her hand gently, asking for quiet. This isn't about Tom Cruise. It never was. This is about every family who's been belittled for what they believe. Every wife who's been told she's too loud or too patriotic. Every veteran who's been forgotten when the cameras stop rolling. I didn't win this because I had more followers. I won this because I refused to be silent. The audience rose to their feet. Even some in the press section wiped their eyes. Daniel stood at the edge of the stage, arms folded, watching his wife stand taller than ever. Keanu Reeves had sent a letter. It was read aloud. Courage isn't always bullets or battlefields. Sometimes it's standing up with truth when the spotlight tries to blind you. That night, major outlets ran headlines not about Tom, but about Caroline's message. Caroline Levit ends the fight with Gracie and power. From lawsuit to leadership, how one press secretary outshined Hollywood. Not just a voice for Trump, a voice for millions. Back home, Caroline placed the now famous flash drive back in a drawer. Not as a trophy. As a reminder, I didn't win this because I'm perfect, she said to Daniel. I won because I stood when others sat. Some people think fame protects you. But today we saw that truth speaks louder to Hollywood's loudest voices. Caroline didn't just fight back. She rewrote the script. If this story shook you, imagine what's coming next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss the next moment where truth flips the narrative. This is Surprising. Stories where every voice matters and no spotlight is too bright for the truth. See you in the next one.